Hey, good morning YouTube. I'm standing in my kitchen. I want to do a little bit of an experiment today on how to make a good cup of coffee. I know of 3 ways to make coffee. There's tons more, trust me. There's more ways to brew coffee than I could ever imagine. But today I want to focus on 3 of them. The standard drip coffee, like from your standard coffee pot, like over there in the corner. Another kind that has become very popular, and it's raved by coffee aficionados worldwide, and that is a coffee press. This is a French press. I've never actually made coffee in it, but I've been watching it on YouTube, and I tell you, there's more ways to make coffee in this than than anything. People are constantly giving different information. I've watched countless videos on if there's any type of a standard on measurements and times, and if you stir or if you don't stir, the temperature of the water, the grind size. Oh my God. I think I've narrowed it down to the middle of all the scenarios that they've given. I'm going to use a medium grind. I'm going to go with about 45 ounces of grinds. I'm going to do water temperature of around 190 to 200, somewhere in there. I'll give it a 4-minute brew time. I've seen it between 3 and 5. And then I am going to stir it a little bit, but I am going to fill it all the way up with the water. Some people say you only fill it up a little bit just to get the grinds wet. That's when you give it a stir, kind of give it time to bloom, all this stuff. Well, I'm not doing all that. I'm just going to fill it up. I'll stir it after about 30 seconds, and then it will complete the brewing cycle of the whole 4 minute. And yes, the 4 minutes will start as soon as I put the water in the grounds. Okay, so I know there's a lot to these little French presses. My third my third style, I actually usually do this. My third style of brewing is something that I just came upon, and I tell you, it went right to the top of the list. Ever since I found this, it's been the only way I've been brewing coffee. And that is, well, a few utensils. But this is kind of a secret, and I don't want to give it away. So stay tuned, keep watching, and you'll find out how to make the best cup of coffee. But I've never tried the French press, so maybe that French press will be a little bit better and maybe a little bit easier than doing it this way. So let's start making some coffee. Okay, so as far as making coffee goes, I want to keep them all separate. So I've got 3 little mason jars. I'm going to measure out the grounds in these. That way they're all even and we're all on equal footing, okay? Okay, for measuring the coffee, I want to make sure that I'm using the same amount of grinds for each style. That way it's a fair comparison. I'm going to turn my scale on. Now, I don't think you'll be able to see it through the camera, but right down here in the lower corner is a little bitty G, meaning grams, and that's how I'm going to weigh everything, not ounces, grams. I'm going to put my cup on it, zero it out. That's called a tare function. I've got our style coffee that we like to use. This is ground at the store. This is not a pre-ground bag. We like this Kendra brand, and we like their morning blend. It's a light roast. A lot of people call that a blonde roast. And we personally prefer the blonde roast just because, well, a blonde roast has more caffeine than a dark roast. All right. It says 45 grams of coffee. Oh, look at that. Cups weigh the exact same, so it's still zeroed out. 45 grams. Still zeroed out. There we go, 45 grams. Okay, so the first style I'm going to show you is probably the easiest. Almost everybody in the world has got one of these, and that is a drip coffee brewer. Okay, I got, like I said, doing 8 cups. Now that's 8 coffee cups. Usually a coffee cup is measured by 6 ounces, not a full measuring weight of 8 ounces. So I'm going to do 8 coffee cups. So that's let's see, 8 times 6 is for all 3 brewing methods, I'm actually going to measure everything out in the same canter, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up to the 8 cup line. I'm going to pour it in my drip maker, remeasure. I'm going to pour it into the well, it'll go into the French press, but I'm actually going to put it in a steam kettle and bring it up to temperature that way. And then I'm going to measure another 8 and put it in the pot. Okay, my 8 cups of water are going into my drip maker, my drip brewer. Okay, there's my 8 cup line. This second pot of 8 cups of water are going to go into my steam kettle, and this will go on the stove. Okay, my third carafe of water is up to my 8 cup line. Okay, so the third pot of coffee will go into the pot, and the pot will go on the stove. Okay, so I've got all 3 systems ready to go on their coffee grounds at 45 ounces. I've also got all 3 of them set up for their water, and that is 8 coffee cups, 8 6-ounce coffee cups. They're all ready to go, but I'm just going to show one at a time in the brew process and doing the whole rigmarole, okay? The drip maker first, it's the easiest. Let's do that one first. Alright, so this is my dripper. This is a pre-filter. Some coffee makers have them, some don't. If you're using your standard tap water, there's probably going to be some impurities that come in, little flakes of this and that, and other stuff. This will actually help pull almost all of that out, really. It does a really good job, so spend a little extra money, get these little pre-filters. All it is, this is a little cage that actually holds it, and it just slides in just like that. This is the basket, okay? And what we gotta do is we gotta put our filter in the basket. You've seen these little filters before. Put it in your basket, just like that. Take your grounds. Now, some people measure it just with like spoonfuls or measuring cupfuls. If I had to guess, that's probably close to half a cup. Okay, so grounds are in. Now on mine, I actually have a little notch in the coffee maker, and that notch houses this little tab. So it goes in a specific way. You put your pre-filter on the top, close the lid, and then you just hit the brew button. Okay, that's all I'm going to show you on how to do a drip style coffee brewer. I'm not going to go into all the settings of how to make a lighter flavor, darker flavor, robust, set timers. I'm not doing all that crap because everyone is different, and what I show you on mine may not work for yours. So I'm just showing you the basics on how to get it going. It's just fill it up, put your coffee grounds in, push the start button, and boom, away it goes. All right, you can probably hear the coffee percolating away over there. The second form I'm going to show you, it's actually kind of a fast form. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, that's just throwing the water into a vessel, measuring out your grounds, pushing a button and letting it go. You don't have to worry about it, anything like that. French pressing, though, is a little more involved. So once you start to do French press, you're not going to be able to really walk away and take a shower or do laundry or change the oil in the car or anything like that, okay? Once you start this process, you got to finish it and hang around close to the kitchen, okay? So let's get going in this. To get my water ready for the French press, all I gotta do is just turn on the kettle, let it come up to a boil. Okay, in the meantime, we're going to get the French press ready, and it's really super simple. All you gotta do is take the top off, which, as you can see, has the plunger, and this is a very fine mesh strainer that's on here. So as you're plunging down through your canter, it will take out, actually it does a couple of things. It will take out all the solids, so all the coffee grounds and everything will get pushed away, but the mesh also kind of incorporates the oil that is brewed and extracted out of the beans. It'll actually infuse that into the liquid, kind of making it an emulsion to where you'll have a nice round full mouthfeel instead of just a watery texture. But to get the canter ready, you just dump in your beans. Now we just gotta wait for the water to boil. Okay, so for the French press style coffee, you are going to need a timer. I'm just going to use my phone and I'm going to set it for 4 minutes. I will start that timer as soon as I pour the hot water into the canter. Okay, easy peasy, just like that. The brewing on the drip coffee brewer is done. If you look at the level line, it's not completely full to the 8 cup line anymore because some of the moisture does get stuck in the grounds. It will just never come out no matter how long it sits here, okay? Another good thing about a drip coffee maker is that it will stay on for quite a while. So most of them will have an automatic shut-off nowadays. So after a certain amount of time, I think usually it's about a half an hour to an hour, somewhere around there, it will just shut off. But for now, it can sit in here, it will stay warm. You can come back, you know, in a couple of hours or so, pour yourself another hot cup of coffee. Okay, water for the French press is at a full boil. I am going to turn that off. I'm not going to do anything with it now. I need to let it come back down in temperature just a little bit. Okay, so a lot of people that I've been watching, well, not a lot, just a few really, they're sitting there saying that you gotta bring your canter up to temperature before you actually even put in your grounds, or, you know, pouring the hot boiling or almost boiling water is going to shock them and, you know, it's going to taste weird. Fuck that. I'm just going to take the water, once it cools down a little bit and to where it's not boiling anymore, I'm just going to pour it in, okay? This is actually a heat tempered glass. So as long as this hasn't been sitting in the freezer or something like that to where it's going to get a thermal shock of that super hot water going in, you'll be fine. Okay, my water has cooled down slightly. It's no longer actually boiling, so it's probably around 200 degrees. And as soon as I start pouring this in, I'm going to start my 4-minute timer. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a chopstick, just kind of make sure that all the grounds are wet because I got a lot floating right here at the top. So just give it a little bit of a stir. I'm going to put the top on just to preserve some of the heat. And what I also did is I pushed the strainer down just a little bit so you can see the grounds right there. And the reason I did that is just to fully submerge it. And I could have swore that this thing said that it was an 8-ounce container. It must be 8 ounces all the way to the top because probably right about here is my 6-ounce line. Okay, my time is done. Now it's time to plunge it. You don't want to go super fast with this. You just go nice and slow. Should take anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds to plunge it all the way down. Alright, the French press is all done. You'll actually want to get this extracted and poured out of the canter as quickly as possible. And it's primarily because if you leave it sitting in there, even though you pushed all those grounds down, they're still going to be brewing, and you'll end up with a super strong, super bitter cup of coffee. The reason I'm pouring it into these little mason jars, I actually want to do a comparison on the color between the French press, the drip, and the third method of brewing. I did notice that because I had more water in here than I should have, I had grounds sitting way up here, so there might be a few in there, but I'm not going to take that in consideration. If I had measured out 6 cups of coffee instead of 8, it would all fit in here just fine, and I wouldn't have an issue with it. So when it comes to that, I'm not worried. Alright, this brings us to the third and personally my favorite way to make a cup of coffee. The flavor is just going to blow your mind, and it is so radical and so different, but it's old school. This is called Scandinavian coffee brewing. No filter, okay? No, at least not one like that, okay? There's no paper filter or anything like that. What we're going to use is a secret ingredient to take all the grounds and all the bitterness out of your coffee. That's right, we're going to use an egg. No, trust me on this. You will not regret making coffee this way. Let's get into it. This is my water. Turn it on high. Let's get our coffee grounds ready. Alright, now I've never actually made an 8-cup version of this. I've either done 6 or 12. I've never done 8. So this is my grounds. Trying to decide if I need to have a second egg in there. I've got one just in case. I'm going to stir that up and see what it looks like. Alright, just going to take a little fork and start stirring in that egg. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. Kind of looks like I don't know, almost like a brownie batter or something. But I think that's going to be good. It's a little thicker than I would like, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, I just wanted to update you a little bit. I did pour a little bit of water in here, mainly because I think it's going to have a hard time coming out in that dense viscosity that it was in. So I put a little bit of water in here just to thin it out so I can pour it out of here a little bit easier. But my water is coming up to a boil. It's just about there. And then we can start the brewing process. Okay, my water is boiling. I'm going to turn off the heat. In fact, you know what? I'm going to turn it down to a medium-low. Then I'm going to just pour in my little mixture here. Try to get out as much of it as I can. And now I'm just going to slowly move it around just a little bit, not too much. Okay, so we're just going to let that sit on the stove at that low temperature and just kind of brew for a little while. About, kind of depends on your flavoring of your coffee. I'm going to go about 7 minutes is about what I found I like. You could do 5, you could do 10, just again, kind of depends on you. You don't have to sit there and stir it the whole time. Okay, but maybe just every so often, just take your fork and just give it just a little push. You're not stirring vigorously, you're not trying to incorporate all that egg into the coffee. You're trying to leave it into basically a big mash ball as much as possible. So as you can see, I'm just kind of leaving it at a little bit of a simmer. You can see the bubbles breaking around. In fact, that might be a little high. It might be a little bit cloudier than what I would like. So I'll just turn the heat down just a little bit more. Okay, so it's been over 7 minutes. I'm going to pull out all these big chunkies. Again, I'm not trying to stir it up too much. I'm just straining it out with this little spider. Okay, I think that's going to be good enough. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to send it through this wire sieve with a little bit of cheesecloth thrown in there. Okay, that's filled up to the same, about the same level as the other two. Okay, so this is the whole reason why I put all 3 brews of coffee into those mason jars. But I wanted to show you the difference in the clarity and the color of each of those brews. These are the 3 brews. This is the drip coffee. This is the French press. And this is the Scandinavian egg coffee. Now I'm hoping that you can see that the brew coffee is so much darker than the other 2. The French press is still darker than the Scandinavian egg coffee. This definitely extracted more. You can tell that by the color, but it also extracted not only good stuff, but all the bad stuff. So you got all your bitterness in here as well as all the flavor. The French press should give us a good combination of both the bitterness and the goodness of coffee. So even though it's dark, it's not that bad. This, however, the egg removes almost all the bitterness, and I mean almost all of it. I love this kind of coffee. Ever since I found how to make it, this is the way I make it all the time, no exceptions. This is my coffee right here. But, like I said, I've never had actual French press coffee before. So why don't we give all 3 of these a taste. This is the drip coffee, stuff that we've made for years around here. And I'm catching a good amount of the flavor notes. A little caramel, a little chocolate. But I tell you, that bitterness is just, there's almost equally amount of bitter in here than there is, the flavor notes. So that's, I don't know, the only way I can say it is acceptable. I can drink it, but I don't really care for it. Alright, the next one would be the French press. Now again, I've never had French press coffee before. It's not bad. I can definitely see how people like this over standard drip coffee. There is less bitterness. Maybe a little fuller mouthfeel, but not much. But I mean, there's still bitterness in there, and Bitterness in coffee just turns me off. I don't like bitter. I mean, nobody does. That's why it's bitter. I mean, plants create bitter compounds so they don't get eaten. Okay, it's their way of living. All right, now for the Scandinavian egg coffee. This is the way coffee should be. No bitterness. It's just full coffee flavor, all the flavor compounds, the chocolates, the caramels, the nuttiness. You know what? If you don't want to put time and effort into making your coffee, get the damn dripper, drink what you want. I don't really give a crap. But this is coffee. Oh. And I tell you, ever since I found this method, this has been the only type of coffee I drink. I might start using the fresh press a little more often, you know, if I'm in a hurry. But I'll stick with my egg. Now, if you're wanting to make a full 12-cup pot, to where it's like your canter in your dripper, you're going to need at least 2 eggs. Okay, there's just so many grounds and stuff in there. I also go and use 55 ounces of coffee grounds in the method. This is a smaller method that's only 8 cups, so I went with 45 ounces, and I also did it for everything else, so everything was all equal. Go 55 ounces of grounds, and it will make a spectacular cup of coffee. Okay, so lastly, I want to talk about cleanup. I mean, that's part of doing coffee, right? You got to clean sometime. At some point, you're going to have to clean whatever you're using. Okay, so let's talk about first the dripper. When was the last time you actually cleaned your dripper? I'll wait for an answer. I know it's probably going to take you a while to actually think about that. I've gone over to my parents' house. Oh my God, their coffee pot is like black. I don't know when the last time they actually washed it was. And who knows what kind of bacteria is living in that stuff. I mean, you could actually have mold in there and you're brewing with it. I mean, think about it. You know, you got liquid in here and it's condensing on the lid. You know, I mean, look at all the spots on mine. And then, not to mention, what's going on in here? There's a ton of moisture in the back of this thing. You know, even though after all that brewing and everything, who knows? They do sell cleaners to clean this, and they recommend you do it probably at least once a month. Do you wash your dripper once a month? No, I don't. And the stuff that they sell is really super toxic stuff. Okay, so what you got to do is you measure out hot water. They actually suggest boiling water. And you dissolve the crystals. I don't know if I have any in here or not. Usually we keep a couple of packets in here. You dissolve it, you know, you fill up your canter with a little bit of boiling water, pour your soap in there, just kind of swirl it around and dissolve it. You pour it into the back of your dripper, and you hit the brew, and it brews through, and it cleans everything out. And we do it probably 2-3 months. But then after it brews, you dump that out. You gotta dump it down the drain. But then you gotta flush it. You know, you gotta sit there and keep on brewing just water through it, just to rinse it all out. And they suggest, even on the packaging, they suggest 3 times. Maybe it's 2. Can't remember. It's either 2 or 3. But basically, you keep brewing until you don't see any blue. Well, you know, I tend to do 3 to 4 times myself, just to make sure that it's all out of there. And when I do that, I mean, I'm filling the canter all the way up, dumping fresh water in, and brewing all the way through it. And I'll do that 3 or 4 times. Well, then of course you got your pre-screen. I mean, check that out. That's what the pre-screen grabbed while I was percolating. I mean, look at all that stuff. I'm not staging this. I just pulled it out of there. So pre-screen helps. And then of course you got your spent coffee grounds. You just take the whole thing, pull it out, throw it in the trash, and it's ready to go. And then even these pre-screen filters, you want to change those out about once a month as well. And because of all that stuff that's built up in there, you got to rinse it out at least every other turn. So there's some quality maintenance that actually goes with having a drip style coffee maker. And it's going to be for all coffee makers, not just drip styles, but those Keurigs too. When was the last time you cleaned your Keurig? Wonder what's growing in that, Okay, now let's talk about the cleanup from the French press. What cleanup? You just rinse it off and maybe sponge it out a little bit, with a rag, and you're ready to go. Really? You think so? I just cleaned this after using it. Just that one time. I used it once. You saw me just now use it. There was so much crap and buildup in this fine mesh, I had to unscrew this whole thing. It does come apart. Gotta unscrew the whole thing. Oops. So you unscrew the handle, the plunger handle and top from this base, and there's like 3-4 things. Okay, so that goes on the bottom of the screen. This is a screen that I just washed this and scrubbed it. I still got a little flaky bit right there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little black thing right there. But I mean, this thing was gummed up with a bunch of stuff. I even cleaned it the way they suggested cleaning it. Filling the canter about half full, putting a little dish soap in there, taking your plunger and just plunging it about 10-12 times. That's what the directions say to do. It doesn't say anything about taking this whole thing apart, but that's the way I had to do it. After doing that, I looked at my plunger, and I saw that there was still a lot of goop in there. So I had to take my plunger completely apart to get everything out. And I mean, the canter is easy enough to wash, yeah. The canter is nothing. It's just basically a cup. A little washcloth around and you're good to go. But this thing's a pain in the ass. Now, what about the cleanup of the egg? You throw the mush away after you've taken that spider and strained it out. You got the cheesecloth that can be just thrown away. That's going to have most of your solids right there. But the pot, the wire strainer, and the spider, just do those in your regular dishes. I mean, it's nothing. There's very little in the way of, dried on goopy stuff. I would suggest, however, the cup that we mixed in the egg and the grounds together, you'll want to rinse that out right away. Because if that sits long, that egg is going to dry up and it's going to be like cement trying to get that stuff out of there. So as far as that goes, just let it soak for a little while and get that egg to loosen up again. Other than that, cleanup is a breeze. I'm telling you, try this egg method. You will not regret it. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch upon is what do these different brewing methods have as far as sediment goes. So what I've got here is an empty one. I'm going to pour each one into the jar, and when I see any sediment down at the bottom, I'll stop. Just what I figured. There's not much in there. I actually thought that that was a piece of sediment right there, but it's not. It's actually on the on the jar. So, drip method of brewing. Your brew comes out nice and clean. Okay, let's try the French press. French press. Actually, I am already seeing sediment as it's pouring in. Holy cow. Look at all that sediment in there. Wow, that's quite amazing. All right, the last one will be the egg method. All right, I am getting, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I am getting some very light sediment. It wasn't nearly as heavy as the French press style, but there was a little bit of sediment in here. It wasn't caked to the bottom like you saw on the French press. It is very light, but there is sediment in there. So basically, what I'm getting at, coffee is subjective, okay? I don't know if I made that clear enough at the beginning of the video, because when I was researching on how to use my French press, everybody I was watching had a different technique, okay? I did what I thought was best, okay? Things to me, in my brain, in my process, what works best to use that French press. But I tell you, all in all, what it comes down to it is taste. What do you like? Do you like your coffee a little bitter? I mean, some people might like that. They like having a nice sweet donut with bitter coffee. That's fine. You go right ahead. If you're the kind that kind of sits on the couch, you know, reading your paper in the morning, or want to take a nice brew to work, you might want to consider trying the egg method. You're probably already doing the French press. Try doing the egg. You might be surprised. All right, this is Mark saying thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the road. My cup's empty.